Hi, I'm Dr. Steve Simon, CEO of Human Services Outcomes, a career consulting company, and I'm a longtime career counselor and consultant. This instructional video supplements my relaunch book and the new relaunch workbook. It'll help you easily identify and write all your skills, and when you do that, they will include not only your transferable skills, but also all your hidden skills. Your transferable skills are those you can use in jobs beyond those you've held. This is particularly important if you've lost your job and jobs in your field are disappearing or changing due to COVID-19 or other reasons. You need to be able to apply your skills to other opportunities. Your hidden skills are those you forgot about or never realized you have, and many of those are likely to be transferable skills. This video is designed for my own clients and anyone else using these books to do a complete skills assessment. If you don't have the books and want to know more now about how they can help and where to get them, you can just jump to the last slide of this tutorial. Identifying all your skills is a difficult task, and that's why I use the books and the video. It'll take some time, but if you do it right, it will help you greatly in giving you an edge in your job search. This video, which is about 16 minutes long, is a little longer than most, but stay with it. It'll get you on the right track and keep you there. To help in constructing your list, write each category in this slide on top of a separate sheet of paper where you can then list the skills. Consider this a creative thinking exercise. You will focus on skills developed in your jobs and through education and training, but don't forget about non-work areas where you probably developed skills you didn't realize you had. If you've served on boards in the community, or as an officer in your place of worship, or you've done other volunteer work, you've developed skills you should document. Even home building projects involving construction skills or home activities like skills in gourmet cooking are worth placing on your list. Focus on skills developed recently enough, say about 10 to 15 years, so that you still have those skills, or they can be refreshed easily through some updating. To find out your transferable skills, you will need to dig deep into your background and pull out all of your skills, just as we define them in the book and in this video. That will also lead to getting to all of your hidden skills. This exercise becomes most difficult when trying to write the skills accurately and clearly. So first we need to talk about what skills are and what they're not. If you confuse skills with other things, you can't know what your skills truly are, and you can't articulate them clearly for potential employers. So let's look closely at that. Skills are needed to accomplish job tasks and requirements. They are learned through experience or training and education, or both. So we'll define them as developed proficiencies or expertise and specialized knowledge, or some combination of those. Often on resumes, I see skills confused with aptitudes, talents, and tasks. They're not those. We'll talk about those further in a minute. So let's see what this means in practical terms. In this slide, I've made a list of skills. You can see by the way they're written that they represent developed proficiencies like negotiating contracts and resolving customer complaints. For example, if procuring supplies is one of your job tasks, negotiating contracts may be one of the skills required. If customer service is a job requirement, then resolving customer complaints will be a necessary skill. Or specialized knowledge might represent a necessary skill like knowledge of C++ programming, which was obtained through training. Most of the skills in the examples require experience, sometimes extensive experience, and usually at least some training or education. These are the types of items you should include in your list. A few other things you might notice. First is that skills can be written as general and also in more specific terms. For example, selling real estate is pretty specific, but that also involves a number of even more specific skills, such as knowledge of real estate sales software and knowledge of real estate financing options. On the other hand, it includes a more general skill of just selling, which can apply to sales occupations across the board. So if you have real estate skills in your list of skills, you might want to include selling and the more specific knowledges I just mentioned. This is one way your list of skills may expand. It's because you include both specific and more general skills. As you do this, you will show an opportunity for more skills to be transferable to more than one job or occupation, as would be the case with selling. Second, you might notice that I use the ing verb, the ing verb, at the beginning of many of the skills. This demonstrates capability to actively use a skill. I recommend that you use this format whenever you can. And third, I try to write succinctly as possible. But above all, when you write a skill, it's very critical to be sure it expresses a developed proficiency, an expertise, and/or a specialized knowledge that is needed to accomplish a task or requirement. Okay, so what about aptitudes, talents, and tasks? These are some things that get confused with skills. They're not skills, though. Aptitudes refer to a potential to learn through training or education. Aptitudes make it easier to learn skills, but they're not skills in themselves. So when you were in high school or college, you found it easier than most others to learn algebra and trigonometry and maybe calculus. If that was the case, you probably have math aptitude. Math aptitude would help you easily learn various numerical skills like those used in accounting or engineering. Talents, on the other hand, are inborn abilities to excel in a specific activity. So they're similar to aptitudes, but they're often more specific and applied to creative arts, like to music or photography or drawing. With preparation and training, they can lead to skills. When it comes to tasks, I find this area most likely to be confused with skills. Tasks are what we do, what's in the job requirements of a position description, like attending meetings or distributing mail. But some tasks can overlap with skills. As an example, you can see that the first two tasks in the list with an ing verb at the beginning could pass for skill. However, if we ask ourselves the question, do these represent developed proficiencies or expertise or specialized training? The answer would most likely be no. If no is the answer, they don't belong on your list. On the other hand, the last task, receiving new patients, could involve an underlying skill. If a clerk just has patients sign in and tells them, go sit down and wait until someone calls you. There's no real skill involved in that. It's simply a task. But if you're doing that as a nurse, there may be underlying skills involved that should be put on the list. You may be receiving patients to do a medical history interview. Certainly that would involve interviewing skills and knowledge of medical terminology, and probably knowledge of medications. All of those would have transferability as well. So when looking at tasks and job requirements, the question should always be asked as to whether this is simply a task or is there an underlying proficiency, expertise, or special knowledge involved that should be on the list of skills. The task itself should not. Only those items as we've defined as skills. So these are some things you should do and avoid when writing your skills. First, simplify as best you can and use as few words as possible. Drill down to the essence of the skill. If it takes 25 words to write a skill, you probably got several skills mixed in, or a skill that can be summarized in 10 words or less. So avoid long sentences. If you're mixing in several skills, handle each as separate skill statements. Next, write your skills so anyone who reads them in a resume will understand what you're saying. You never know the background of the first resume screener. For example, if you are skilled in a little-known software system that manages customer satisfaction, write your skill more generally, such as knowledge of customer satisfaction management software. You can also include a separate skill in your list covering the specific system, since it's possible you might want to use that in a resume for a specific job that requires that skill. However, the more general statement will also serve you well in terms of transferability. Finally, as I've already mentioned, avoid including tasks disguised as skills on your list. If you think what you are writing could be a task, always ask yourself, is this a developed proficiency or expertise or specialized knowledge, or is it simply something I do? If it's just something you do, don't put it on your list. On the other hand, if there are underlying skills related to the task, do put those on your list. So I wanted to say something about the so-called soft skills. Up to this point, we've talked mainly about what might be considered hard or harder skills. The hard skills are more specific and well-defined than soft skills. But you may have read about soft skills, which have gotten a lot of attention, particularly from bloggers. Employers are interested in soft skills because they're equated with the ability to interact with and deal effectively with people and to successfully navigate the work environment. By their very nature, as you'll see in the examples in the next slide, they're more vague, general, and subjective than the harder skills. In fact, you could easily question whether they're mostly personality traits rather than skills, and I do believe they are. However, they have their uses and sometimes can be converted into more specific harder skills. One soft skill I see frequently in resumes is reference to strong communication skills. Communication is more like a skill, that is, a developed proficiency or expertise, than the others. The problem is that anyone can say they have good communication skills, but that's really meaningless without backup, with some harder skill. Converting soft skills to harder skills gives an employer something more specific and concrete to associate with filling a job than simply a general statement. So how do you do this? Well, you ask yourself the question, what specific skills underlie my skill in communication? For example, for examples, we can go back to my list of harder skills. Let's say you're applying for a retail store manager job. See if you can identify or derive some skills from this list that would concretely demonstrate that you have strong communication skills and also be relevant to the job. I would say resolving customer complaints, training employees, negotiating, and selling. If you have those four skills, it's pretty clear that you have good communication skills for purposes of this job. But just saying, I have great communication skills would not provide what the employer needs to know. Now, as far as soft skills that are clearly personality traits, like persistence, flexibility, motivation, and the others, you may be able to do the same thing. But if you can't find underlying harder skills, you can just save these traits to include in a cover letter or in a branding statement or to discuss in an interview. Just don't include them on your skills list. In fact, even if you do find harder skills, it won't hurt to still inject these soft skills and traits elsewhere, like in your cover letter or in the interview, to reinforce your documented hard skills. And they're transferable to almost all jobs, so making note of them can be helpful. So to summarize, for each item in your list, ask yourself, is this a developed proficiency or expertise, or a specialized knowledge, or some combination? And did I write this in the simplest way with the least number of words? Also, be mindful of your soft skills, even though many of these may really be personality traits. However, unless you can identify underlying harder skills, don't include them in your list of skills. Save them for cover letters, a branding statement in your resume, or for discussion in interviews. So this concludes the tutorial, but I just want to leave you with a quick word about the books. This tutorial gives you all the information you need to create a master list of your transferable skills. However, chapters 8 and 9 in the book provide more guidance on consolidating your skills and rating them to determine which ones are stronger. And then, of the strongest skills, you can rate the ones you are most interested in using. The new workbook helps you go through that process seamlessly. The idea is to have all the information you need to search for jobs in which you can be a star performer and feel a passion for doing. The workbook also includes other assessments to move you toward that goal. If you want the book and workbook, you can get them directly from my Equid sales site listed below. It's the only place where you can get the workbook. If you only want the book, you can get it in the ebook or softcover version at Amazon.com. Go to the Amazon website shown in the slide. And best of luck in your search for a new job.